Good evening, everybody. My name is Bhavya Suri, and I am the health educator at the Multiple Sclerosis Foundation. I want to thank everybody for attending. So before we start, I just want to introduce our speakers today. We're joined by Andrea and Emily from Oscar the MS Monkey, and they were gracious enough to host this event with two of our guest speakers, Shay and Jillian. So I'm going to turn it over to them and let them start this discussion.
Thank you, Bhavia.
Thank you.
So I was diagnosed when I was 15 years old, and I know that my dating life was pretty unusual, I think, as a teenager. And Shay and Jillian were also diagnosed as teenagers. How old were you guys when you were diagnosed? Shay, how about you first?
I was diagnosed when I was in like 8th grade, so maybe like 13 around that time, 14.
Pretty much before you were dating.
Yes.
And Jillian, when were you diagnosed?
I got diagnosed when I was 16, I think. Right at the great age of 16.
Yes. Yes. Well, dating is really our big topic tonight, and we were just saying that we've seen a lot of prom pictures going around on social media. People getting ready for prom and posting all their fun pictures with their dates, but prom can be a little bit overwhelming. All of the energy that's involved in it for the entire day, really.
Yeah.
I mean,
Sometimes the weekend.
yeah, getting ready, going out for dinner, going to the actual prom, and then dancing for 4 hours or however many hours it is. Shay, I know you had kind of a unique prom experience. What did you do for your prom?
Yeah, so for my prom, I actually I didn't go to my own prom. I went to my boyfriend's prom. Um, but we actually ended up leaving a little bit earlier that night just because I was really tired and my MS was kind of acting up a little bit, but we ended up kind of doing our own thing that was really accommodating for my MS as well.
When was your date flexible with that?
Oh yeah, definitely. He didn't have any problem with it, and he completely understood that I was having my MS problems and symptoms. And so that was something that I really appreciated. And I was always nervous about like when I was diagnosed, I was worried about how that would affect me going on later.
Definitely. Jillian, what was your prom experience?
I went to 3, I think, and the last 2 were the ones that I had been diagnosed for. So the first one that I had been diagnosed for, it was in the middle of May, so it's really hot outside, and I have like pounds and pounds of makeup on and a big heavy dress. Um, so that was hard because my parents were like, "Let's take pictures," and I was like, "I'm dying." But it was pretty good. I just had to sit down a lot and just I take a deep breath and be like, "It's gonna be okay."
Did you stay all night?
The first prom, I don't think I did either of the proms. I didn't stay. I ended up getting bored and I was like, I'm gonna go home and watch movies.
I know my first prom experience, we actually didn't even go to prom.
No.
We got a group of friends together and we got all dressed up, took all the prom pictures and everything. We went out to dinner and then we went bowling. And so we were done with our big celebrations by 9 o'clock, and it was perfect.
But before you went to prom and dinner, you went to the thrift store.
Yeah.
All of
Yes.
the whole group went to the thrift store and they all got a new outfit.
Yep.
Really?
The girls got dresses, the guys got suits, and so they were all dressed up and it was really fun.
Prom on a budget.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. You always have like expectations and then it turns out completely different, but that's how it was meant to be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Still fun.
What would you guys tell a teenager that has MS and they're maybe a little hesitant about prom right now and what their expectations are for prom?
Jillian, do you want to go first?
Thinking of my response.
Good.
Probably like be flexible with yourself, give yourself a lot of grace, because it's a hard thing to go through at any age, and being a teenager with it especially, you're gonna be learning lots of things, and just be patient with yourself and give yourself time. And if you need like a minute to be like, guys, this is overwhelming for me, just take that minute and get just, if you can feel better about it for just a little bit, just try to do that.
Listen
For
to your
sure.
body.
Yeah.
And then advocate for yourself.
Hmm.
And don't feel bad about it. It's who you are.
Yeah,
What
exactly.
your needs are.
Yeah, I would agree. I would just say, with MS, you really have to be conscious about what your limits are and not pushing yourself, because especially with prom, you want it to be something that you can look back and remember on like all the fun times. But if you're looking back and you're like, I was doing too much and I wish that I had stopped myself so I could catch up with my body and then enjoy the rest of the night, like I think that's something really important to remember.
Definitely.
I wore heels to both my proms, and I'm not good at walking in them. They were off by like 30 minutes once I got into wherever the prom was. I was like, it's time to dance, guys. I got my shoes on.
So there's another tip for prom goers.
Yeah.
Don't wear
No
heels.
heels.
Yeah,
No.
maybe pack some Advil or something in your purse.
Yeah.
Definitely. So with the flexibility with prom, that also carries into flexibility with dating. What are your dates look like when you are having kind of a harder MS day?
Yeah.
And you already had plans or something. What does that look like?
For me, I'm like my go-to if I'm having like extreme fatigue is just staying in and watching movies and maybe going to the store and buying something that we could like make while we're watching the movie. That's definitely just my go-to because I've always loved like staying in and stuff, but it's a lot better when you know that you can do that and it's something fun when you have MS and you're not feeling like it's not like a weird date idea. It's a normal thing.
Mhm. For usually when I'm like feeling pretty tired, which is most of the time, typically I text my boyfriend and I'm like, hey, the date's not gonna work, and he's really flexible about it, and he's like, no, that's okay, do you want to still hang out? And I'm like, yeah. So he usually, like Shay said, comes over, we watch movies. He usually brings food, which I'm very happy about.
Awesome. So flexibility, key to a relationship. And sounds like you both have found young men that are willing to be that with you, willing to be flexible.
Definitely. I'm very understanding too.
Mhm.
That's awesome. Can you give me an example of a date that you had all planned, prom excluded? Something you were really excited about doing something and then you had to pivot and flexibility came into view and you still had a great evening. What did that look like?
Um, Let me think. I know there's been a time when I've been like with a group and stuff and with him, but like then things have gone around. But I think just a date, it was probably when we were going to have like a really fancy dinner and he had it all set up and we were ready to go and we were gonna dress nice and he made the reservations and it was a place that I've never been to before and I just couldn't do it. My head was hurting, my legs were hurting and I think it was in the summer, and so I was working a lot more than I have been. So my body was definitely feeling that, and I felt so awful because, I mean, a fancy dinner, who wouldn't want to go to that? But it was just something that I had to be honest about, and I let him know, and we rescheduled it, and it worked out, and then he came over instead, and we just relaxed.
Good. Cool.
Actually, this weekend I we went on a date to an arcade, and it was like an hour in. I started overheating. I got a headache. I was like, Andrew, I can't, my legs are starting to not work. So we ended up just having to leave. We went and got dinner, which was fine. I could handle that. I was sitting, I was good. And then we just went back to our hotel and just hung out.
Yeah, that stimulation in an arcade can be a lot.
It was a lot and it was really busy. And I was like, Andrew, first of all, I'm anxious. And second of all, my MS is not great.
I know grocery stores can do that at times
Oh
too.
yeah, definitely. There's so much going on in a grocery store.
Yeah.
So I know we kind of jumped into like we're already dating, but let's take a step back. And as you have entered new relationships since your diagnosis, um, how have your boyfriends reacted, or how did you tell them?
So for me, when I was first diagnosed, I think it took me a long time to truly really be okay with telling other people. I would get very anxious, like if I was, talking to someone who could potentially be a future boyfriend, I would worry all the time about telling him, when I should tell him, how he would react, because for me, when before I was diagnosed, I had never heard of MS before, and so when I was diagnosed, I didn't understand what it was, and I didn't tell a lot of my friends even because I was worried what they would think. So before I, you know, would talk to somebody or maybe meet someone, I would think to myself how I want to tell them and how I want to approach it. And I would just have like a talk with myself, honestly, and just say that I have MS and it's not something that's going to change. And I'm able to deal with it myself. And whoever I should be with or want to be with, they should be able to accept that and deal with it. So I kind of just go into the conversation making it casual because it's something that I have, but it's not life defining. So it's something casual for me that I want to go into, and I'll just say, I have MS. This is some of the symptoms that I have, and making them aware of the symptoms that I have a lot so they know that it's happening when it's happening.
Yeah.
And usually they've been very understanding about it.
So you both have a chronic illness. I know that's not news to you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna assume that your boyfriend doesn't. But I also assume that he probably has some of his own life to tackle, some challenges and different things like that.
Mhm.
So you both bring strengths to your relationships. What are some of his strengths, Jillian?
Um, he's very patient with me. He's super patient and understanding, and he's, as much as I don't like it, sometimes he pushes me even when I don't want to be pushed, especially to like keep up on my exercises because he knows that's important. It's He's really good overall, just everything. Just
And what are your strengths?
um
Coming to you next, Shay. So, you can be
I'm thinking.
um I think that I'm pretty caring. I try to also be patient, and it's hard for me to come up with strengths for myself. um I know that I'm stronger than I give myself credit for. I know that.
Yep.
I think that's the biggest one that I have, because I like to look down on myself a lot, but I know that I'm stronger than I give myself credit for, even though I don't believe it all the time.
You're definitely a strong young woman. And how about you, Shay? What are your strengths?
I think that some of my strengths are, especially that I've learned this year in my first year of college, is that I'm very determined, and that if I don't know something right away, something that I think is really important to remember is that if you don't know something right away, that's okay and you can learn it. And I think that the determination that I have to learn something new is one of my biggest strengths.
Awesome. And are you currently dating?
I
should ask.
am. I've had a boyfriend for about 2 years.
And what are his strengths?
I think for sure his strengths are that he's very understanding and patient, because I know that I think I have a little bit of a shorter temper than he does. So when we have little arguments, he's always like calming me down, reassuring me, and like trying to get the problem worked out. And I think that he pushes me also to do better in our relationship, and also just in life when I'm stressing about something, homework. He is very good with me, calming me down and getting me through that little freak out so that I can keep going.
Awesome. So part of why I was asking these questions is that I think it's important for others to see that there are ways that we can support each other.
Definitely.
Um,
Often as a person with MS, you think about how all of these other people are helping you,
yeah,
Yeah.
but how are you helping the other people too? What's
Exactly.
the balance in the relationship?
yeah,
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, definitely.
sweet.
One of the things that I got married about 6 months ago, and one of the things that my husband and I have really found to be one of the most beneficial things in our relationship, and I think this is just any relationship, is being honest and having open communication.
Oh,
If
yeah.
I'm not feeling well, I need to tell him. I
Yeah.
don't try to hide it. That's just going to cause tension, and it's going to cause misunderstanding. And yeah, just be honest. Be honest with what you're feeling. Be honest with what.
Tried the hiding how I'm feeling. It does not work.
Yeah.
Tell me
It's
more
better
about
to
that.
before, like, right when me and my boyfriend started dating, I told him right away that I had MS. I just came out with it and I was like, listen, I have this. I don't want to teach you about it, but I'm going to, and then do your own research.
Yeah.
But it at the beginning, I hid a lot of my symptoms trying to be like, oh, it doesn't even affect me that much. And then I would wear myself out. So it's better to just be honest and tell them, like, hey, these are my limits. I can't stretch it that far.
Yeah,
Yeah, I agree. Because oftentimes, if you don't tell them the pain that you're feeling in your body, it ends up projecting onto them, and that's like not what you want to have in the relationship.
I've snapped at
Yeah,
her before when
me too.
I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm just overheating. It's really hot.
I've had quite a few instances when my symptoms are heightened. I don't want to think. I
Yeah.
don't want to decide anything. I just say, Zach, I'm not deciding what we're doing for dinner. I'm not in position.
I'm
to-
hot.
Just decide. Choose for me.
It's better for both of us if you just decide for us.
Yes.
Yes.
If we're having burgers, fine, but you're making them.
Yeah.
Now, Jillian, you first really started talking with Andrew when you were at camp a couple years ago. And so you were actually at a camp for teenagers that have MS.
Yep.
Did he have questions around that? Like, why are you in Wisconsin?
I think that I had told him what it was for. I don't know if he knew about everything, but I think like some of the things that I told him, he was like, wow, that's really cool. He was like, so what's this? And he was just asking some like little questions here and there. And I was like, well, this. And he's like, that's amazing. And most of the conversations that I've had with him about it have been really good.
Good.
Good. That's fun. We're just reading our notes here.
You're good.
You're just flying through these
flying through 'em.
questions. So amazingly. So what are some modifications? I know we've talked about movies a lot and flexibility and open communication, but what are some other dating modifications that you guys have had or you guys have found to be helpful?
My boyfriend, he carried, I think it was during the summer, he carried my wheelchair in his car for when I overheated, and he'd just wheel me around. And I was really anxious and insecure about it at first, but I was like, this is necessary. I can't walk.
Yeah, that's a
So
great idea.
yeah, it was really helpful. And then one of us always has a water bottle on us, so I can drink that and cool down at least a little bit as
Yeah.
much as I can. So those are two of the big things that I have.
Yeah, I would agree with the water bottle. I think it's like something small like that where if I'm overheating, which I've experienced that a lot more recently. I haven't really had that as much at the beginning of my MS diagnosis, but it's been more recent in like the past 2 summers, I'd say. And in those summers, he would always like buy me a water bottle. He would never have me buy it myself. And so it's just something like that to know that he's understanding of my MS and I feel supported. And also, a time I think that really comes to mind is last year's spring break. I think we went to Florida, and we were at an amusement park, and it was very hot and the lines were really long. So, as you know, that's not the best combination for MS. And the only, like, I couldn't stand anymore. So, we had to get a wheelchair, and that was the first time that I had used a wheelchair in front of him, so I was feeling very self-conscious and insecure because I didn't know how he'd react to it, but the whole day he was pushing my wheelchair, and it felt very, very nice to know that I was loved even though I was feeling self-conscious about something like that, because it was a new experience for me too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like that would actually, for both of you, both of your guys were so understanding with a
Mhm.
wheelchair, and I feel like that would really strengthen and deepen a relationship
yeah.
because it's showing that they're not judging you. They truly care about you, and they want to spend time with you and help you enjoy the time that you're spending together, which
Yeah.
it's really cool.
Yeah, that's great.
It was very eye-opening how, like, just I'm trying to think of the word. How he wasn't excited, I'd say, but he was just willing to help and like, yeah, I'll wheel you around. Of course I will. It was very comforting to hear that he was so willing to help, because I was like, I didn't know how he was gonna react. I was like, this is embarrassing. Like most of the time I'm like in the beginning, I was like, no, that's embarrassing.
Yeah.
But now, like, that I have somebody that I know is going to like be there and stick up for me and stuff, it really helps.
Yeah.
It was something that was so big in your head, and he just brought it down,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
so it
Yeah.
was practically nothing.
Yeah. Well, that brings me to summer. Since you were both talking about heat and working through, what are some date suggestions that you have for summer? School's ending.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind for me is sitting in an ice cream shop. I mean, that would be nice to cool off and you can sit down, just talk, and you're not feeling overheated, and you can sit down, you're not standing for a long time.
Sure.
I've done like little picnics and making sure that there's like shaded areas somewhere around. Those definitely help because it gets really hot.
Zach and I often enjoy going kayaking because then
Yeah.
if I get too hot, I can just put my hands in the water, put my feet in the
Mhm.
water, or jump in.
Yeah, I know. as long as there's like an easy access to cool off, then it'll be good.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Do you like water parks or not?
Personally, I mean, I think they're fun. I don't know how I feel about all the germs. I just think about the germs and all the
All
I don't
the
know. I don't know if that's just a me thing, but
I
I
get it.
mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll sit by the pool. I'll sit by a pool and relax.
Yeah. Awesome.
What about if you're going out with a group of friends and they suggest something that is, you know, you're going to get overheated?
Mhm.
What would you do in that, or what have you done in that kind of situation?
Personally for me, as much as I would love to go do some activity with my friends, I know that over the years I've learned not to push myself and maybe I would step to the side, talk to my boyfriend and say, I can't do this. I would love for you guys to go do that. I just know my body personally, and I know that I don't think I'd be able to handle that, and that's okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, I just make sure that I'd advocate for myself and say, I know that my body is not going to be able to do that without anything overheating or like struggling to walk or getting a headache, anything. So I just make sure that I'd advocate and be like, maybe we could do something else, or you guys can do that and I'll go the next time that we
Yeah.
do something that I can do.
Yeah.
It's nice that not nice. It's incredible that you guys have learned how to advocate for yourselves, and it sounds like your guys have also learned how to advocate for you, and that's really important
Yep.
too, because
Yeah.
I know even just with mother and daughter, like I don't recognize my own limits sometimes,
Mhm.
and you have to say, Emily, knock it off.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Go sit down, here's a glass of ice water,
Yeah.
and go cool off.
But I think we're all kind of vulnerable to that.
Yeah.
I don't have MS, but I've certainly run myself to the point where people have looked at me, either my husband or Emily, and said, "Yeah, you need to check out of here for a while."
Go away.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And it's nice. It's important. I think I've learned over the years and with MS Camp to advocate for myself, and having really good friends that understand as well is really important.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. Being able to listen and know that you're being heard,
Yeah.
that's really important. Fabia, do we have any questions from anybody listening in? Maybe.
Looks like we have one raised hand.
Sorry, guys, I heard it, but I don't see, I
Okay.
see the raised hand, but there are no questions from Facebook yet.
Okay.
So do you want me to just start the questions now?
Sure. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So David, I'm going to allow you to talk. If you want to state your question.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is David, and I am from the Bahamas. I was diagnosed with MS at the age of 14 years old. And my encouragement to the teenagers who may be listening is just to live your life. I personally didn't care. I still took my meds, but I didn't care. And I graduated high school, I graduated university, and I worked for over 10 years. So you have to still go on. Yes, at the age of 30, I started using a cane. At the age of 35, using a walker, rollator. At the age of 38, used a wheelchair. But guess what? I'm still pushing on. I'm still going, and that's my encouragement to all of the teenagers listening right now. And in regards to dating, I want to talk about that. I had 3 girlfriends. I had 2 Bahamians and 1 American. And they all understood my cause, the MS and so forth. And this was earlier in my life, and everything was cool. I didn't care. I did not care. But all is well. And but encouragement to all of the teenagers and everyone else listening. You'll make it. You'll get it. Get it done. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, David. You're exactly right in that, life goes on, and we continue to have experiences. Sometimes you bring a wheelchair with, sometimes you bring water bottles with, and sometimes you just sit at the edge of the pool.
Well, and I feel like also the people who embrace any challenges that you might be going through, those are the important ones.
Yeah.
The people who have a
Mhm.
problem with pushing a wheelchair or finding you an ice cream cone because it's an inconvenience.
Yeah.
They're not worth sticking around.
No.
Mm.
Find the ones that are there for you and be there for them too, for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think there's a really important balance between, knowing your limits and acknowledging that this is just a part of you and that you shouldn't let it stop you from doing all these amazing things that you can do. You
Mhm.
just might have to take a different approach to it, but you can definitely do it still.
Definitely.
That was really well said. I think one of the themes that I've seen working at this foundation is that a lot of people say it's easy to get caught up in MS and make it your entire identity, but it should only be a piece of you, and you should still get to enjoy everything you want and just know your limitations and how to work around it, which I think all of you has successfully done.
And it is a process to learn what those limitations are, and to give yourself permission to stop at the point where you need to stop. Because I think our tendency, and especially as young teenagers, your tendency is to keep up.
Yeah.
And you want to be with your friends, you want to get out on Friday night, and dang, that pizza party looks really fun, and
But Fridays
Makes it
are
tough.
exhausting. You
But
just went through a full week of school and now you have
Fridays
to
are tough.
ugh.
That's
Yeah,
how I
think-
feel.
In today's world, I feel like teenagers have it a lot harder because there's the social media
Yes.
impact as well. So you have to make sure you're always going out with your friends, or if you're at home because you're exhibiting some symptom. I don't have MS, but I'm assuming this is what it would be like, that you just watch your friends have fun and it kind of makes you feel left out.
Mhm.
So I'm sure that's hard to navigate too.
Now, Jillian and Shay, you guys know each other through camp and other Oscar programs. When you've been in certain situations, like Bobby mentioned, where there's that loneliness,
Yeah.
have you guys reached out to each other or other teenagers that have MS, people that understand what the loneliness is that you're feeling?
I-
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I've reached out a couple times to the people that I've met at camp, and I'm like, this really sucks. I feel like I'm being left out. And they're usually really helpful at helping me calm down, and like they're able to like recognize and understand exactly what I'm going through. It's really nice when I don't have to explain why I'm feeling that way. I like that I can just text or Snapchat or call them and be like, I feel really lonely, and they're like, yeah, me too. And so we just bond over that.
Yeah, I was just gonna say Jillian's like the first person that I really met that had MS when I was first diagnosed, and then we found out that we lived relatively close to each other. So it's really nice because even now, like, we have a group chat from MS camp, and like some days someone will text and they'll be like, "Hey, I'm feeling this, and I don't like, have you guys felt that before?" And someone will say, "Yeah," and then I feel this too, and it's just nice because it's that kind of understanding that as much as you love your friends, you can't relate that way with them. And so it's nice that when you feel lonely, you have these people that you can come to who know exactly what you're going through, even though it's something that like people experience different symptoms. it's something that you can still relate with.
Definitely. And if there are any teenagers or young adults listening or watching right now, you're not alone. There are obviously there are other teenagers out there who are going through the same struggles that you're going to and who do understand. And I encourage you to reach out to us. We're, as Bobby mentioned earlier, we're Oscar the MS Monkey. You can find us online and on social media, and we would love to help you connect with other teenagers in your area or worldwide, really.
Yeah. Yeah, what we like to do is find out where you are, and then we look through our network of who we may know in the area, and we'll contact the other party for you and see if they're open to meeting. And I don't think we've ever been turned down once.
No.
Usually people are very excited to meet somebody new. So yeah, if you're feeling like you'd like to connect, we would love to help that be a process for you.
Yep.
I know you guys also this time gave traveling tips, which I think it'll be in our next magazine for spring 2023. So I think that is also something you guys can mention, because I know as relationships advance, you want to take trips together. So especially if one partner has MS, how do you work through that and still go on vacations? Because you're a teenager, you still want to see the world.
Yeah.
So that is something I think is worth mentioning. For you guys gave great tips like pre-check and knowing what to pack and just being patient with yourself. I think that was the overall theme.
Take time.
Yeah.
Definitely give yourself time. I went to the Bahamas, I think a month or two ago.
Wow.
It was very hot and I had to take lots of breaks.
Yeah. But maybe you enjoy it more because you do have to just kind of sit back and be a part of it rather than trying to rush through it. So
Yeah, it definitely helped
yeah.
that I just got to sit back and kind of just see everything and look out, and it was nice.
That's fun. Shay, have you traveled much with your MS?
Yeah, well, as I mentioned, I went to Florida for spring break, and I think that that was kind of around the time where I was starting to experience the overheating with my MS and the symptoms with that. And I think that it's just really important to remember, at least this is what helps for me, that I'd rather, sit and watch my friends play volleyball in the shade and enjoy that than go in the sun, overheat, and be miserable doing that. And I think it's just really important to know that, that's okay. Like with MS, you need to stop for a minute. Maybe you need to have your own different version of fun, and that's okay.
And you can still be with your friends and hang out.
I agree, yeah.
I think at MS camp we tried playing volleyball and it didn't last very long because we just all got tired.
If I remember correctly, that day was about 95 degrees and humid.
Oh, wow.
And you went outside and played.
It lasted for like 5 minutes, and then we were all on the floor. We were like, we can't do this. Let's go back inside. There's air conditioning.
Yes. There are games inside you can play.
Go play Tiddlywinks or something.
I know one of the things that I do when I know I'm going to a hot climate is I have an ice cream budget. Like we went to Italy a few years ago. We were in Venice, and I think more than anything, we spent the most money on gelato.
Yep.
Because we just like, not even just for me, and my dad also has MS, but all of us, like it was hot.
It was probably every hour and a half.
We'd have our fix of gelato to cool us off, because even the water wasn't cold.
No,
it was
no. The gelato was good.
Yep.
I mean, that's not such a bad thing, since gelato is one of the famous things in Italy. So you probably like you guys mentioned, having these breaks maybe gave you guys an opportunity that you wouldn't have had if you didn't take breaks. So you probably got to try, I don't even know how many flavors of gelato.
All the flavors.
Many.
You probably wouldn't have done that had
No.
you not taken breaks.
Exactly.
So there is some silver lining in that.
Absolutely.
Oh, and it was delicious.
Oh, gelato in Venice? Really? Come on.
That sounds delicious.
It was fun.
One of the things I also tell our campers when we have camp in the summer is if they need to sit out for something, I ask, how are you with a camera? Would you be our photographer during this activity? And that allows them to still be engaged in what we're doing, but maybe they can zoom in from they're leaning against a tree or something,
Mhm.
and they're able to zoom in on the people that are playing volleyball, but still be actively engaged in whatever activity is going on.
Yep.
Just finding those little modifications.
Yep. And speaking of that, I'm just thinking of at when we have our MS camp, um, for with the teenagers, we really do try to push the teenagers to do something that they might not try normally, and I think that's important too with a relationship is to don't be afraid to try the volleyball game once. And like Emily said, it might just be that you have to go and sit under the tree or whatever it is that the group comes up with or that your significant other comes up with, go ahead and try it. You may think that you can't do it, but you just don't know. And maybe today's the day that you can. And if you just automatically bow out because yeah, I don't think so. um there's knowing your limits for sure, but try it for a little bit maybe
Yeah,
just to see.
yeah. Test it.
Yeah, you'll know pretty quickly if it's too much, and that's fine.
Yeah.
So fun. Well, it's so
Well-
great to hear how you guys are doing in your relationships. It sounds like you have some really healthy things going on, and
Mhm.
you're definitely taking care of yourselves, and that shows.
Yeah, I think it's nice to know that even even if you have MS, it doesn't mean that you can't date. It doesn't mean you can't do any of these things that we're talking about, like playing volleyball or going on a trip or having a boyfriend or girlfriend or whoever. Like finding the right person, someone who understands and staying true to yourself and knowing that you have this, it's fine. You just need to find somebody who understands that too.
Yeah.
And there will be somebody that understands. I think coming to terms with that, like thinking that nobody's ever gonna understand, somebody's gonna understand, and they'll love you for exactly who you are.
Yeah.
I think that's important to remember.
And he's looking for you as much
Mhm.
as you're looking for him, and someday you guys will find each other if,
Yeah.
if that's the way it's supposed to be.
So I have another question for Shay. So we've been talking about relationships in the dating sense, but there's also relationships in other senses. You're in college. Do you
Yes.
have a roommate?
Well, I did have a roommate at the first half of the year, but then she ended up leaving. So I have a single room now, and I actually found that it helps a lot more with my MS symptoms. So I'm switching to a single room for next year as well. But I assume you're gonna ask me about relationships, like friendships in college and with MS. So I think that with that, at first I was a little bit nervous, and I think I still am a little bit nervous sharing it just because it's the first year of college and I'm completely new to these people. But I've noticed that once I'm growing like closer and making more friendships, I will share that, and it's completely fine because there's nothing you can do to change it. And if I'm here for the next 4 years, I don't want to have to hide something like that. It's not something I should be ashamed of. So
Definitely. Well, and I'm so glad you have a single room. When I was when I was looking at colleges, that was one of the requirements on my list. I was like, I can't have a roommate. I know that's something that
Yeah.
I can't do.
yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh
And
yeah, I agree. definitely. I tried to I had a roommate and it was very nice, but I was noticing that like I sometimes I would come home from class and there's a lot of hills on campus and my body would be like probably the worst fatigue I've had this semester this year just because it's a new transition and I found that it was really hard to have such like a different schedule with somebody else who when I'm having terrible headaches or my vision's kind of going in and out or my legs aren't working right now and my roommate's over here doing laundry or on the phone and I just need to be like sometimes I just need to be in bed not doing anything like I need that so I can do my work later. And so I've found that when I don't have a roommate and I've had these accommodations that my school has been very nice about and very accommodating, it's helped me so much more with my schoolwork because my MS is being dealt with better.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Good job advocating.
Yeah.
Did you have something to add to that, Jillian?
I don't think so. I know that I talked to my school about accommodations when I was going to classes still, but right now I'm just taking online classes and that's been helpful because then I don't have to walk around campus.
Yeah.
I did that too.
Yeah.
You can do school at your own pace and
Mhm.
and always in the air conditioning.
Yes.
Some classrooms on college campuses aren't air conditioned. It's like, how?
I know. Yes.
The dorm rooms at the college that I work at, they're not air conditioned. And I'm like, how do
Oh.
you guys do this?
That's
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah, I've learned to layer up so that when I'm walking out to class, I'm layered up, and then as I'm walking, I'll take my jacket off, and then maybe when I get to class, I'll take my sweatshirt off, and so you learn, you definitely learn.
Mhm.
Sure.
That's fun.
I still don't have any questions from Facebook, but I'm sincerely enjoying this conversation. I mean, I think it's so great that you guys are sharing everything, and I know it'll help a lot of teenagers and even people that are older, because it's not necessarily just teenagers. Maybe you get diagnosed later in life and you kind of still have to navigate how are you going to tell your new partner or existing partner. So you guys gave some really great advice.
Yeah.
The last webinar we did, it was about a month ago. We were talking with siblings
Mhm.
and what the siblings' perspective is on having a sibling with MS. What is your relationship with your siblings? We talked to the siblings directly, but let's talk to you guys about how has MS impacted your relationship with your own siblings?
For me, I think it's made us a lot closer than before because my brother, he's a very relaxed guy, very chill. So I think when I was first getting diagnosed, I mean, he was there at my very first appointment when I was very insistent that something was wrong with me and these things that I was experiencing. And so he saw me in like a very vulnerable moment. And I think now I can really see how caring he is and how worried he is. If I'm not feeling well, he's completely very understanding about that. And he's very brotherly, which is very nice because I feel like that is from my MS diagnosis and it's brought us closer.
Is he older or younger than you?
He is older, he's 22. So he actually just moved out, but I mean, we're close because of that now.
Sure.
I think that the MS diagnosis definitely brought me and my brother closer. I know that he was there, like the big, like where I got diagnosed, and they were like, "This is the plan." And I think one of the first questions he asked was, "Is Jillian gonna die?" That was his first question because he didn't know, and I think it's brought us closer, and I know how much he cares about me, even though I try to ignore it sometimes, he does care.
There's also a big relationship that we haven't mentioned, and that's our parents. What is your What is your relationship with your parents since your diagnosis?
Oh my gosh, for me, it's brought me and my mom so much closer, and like I feel like we understand each other so much more. Like I really don't know how I would do any of my MS so far, like my diagnosis without her. She's the one that's like when I was first getting diagnosed, I was only 13, so I wasn't really like I advocated through her and she, communicated to the doctors for me. And when there was a lot of difficult times where I feel like, maybe some doctors weren't listening to me and I would cry about it, maybe she would calm me down. And right, even now, like she goes with me to all my appointments and like I can tell she cares about it so much. She has more questions than I do. And I'm very grateful for that. So yeah.
I think that there's definitely like a learning curve with like getting your parents to understand like MS and stuff, because they're still gonna see you and be like, no, my baby is perfect. She can't have something wrong.
Yeah.
And so there's just a little bit of like learning and navigating that. But I definitely think that it's brought me and my parents a lot closer. Like Shay said, my mom advocated for me a lot, and she'd always, even now, she still has way more questions, and she reminds me, she's like, make sure you tell them about this. And so that's usually my reminder to bring something up at the doctor.
Yeah.
Like, oh
Definitely.
yeah, I am having this issue.
Yeah.
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 Having an extra set of eyes and ears and another brain to remember things.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've started to wean off of helping Emily at her doctor appointments. And we've started to ramp up her husband being at her doctor appointments. But yeah, I'll still text her and say, remember to ask this, remember to say that.
Yep. Yeah, I've always my mom's always been one of my biggest supporters, and so it's been hard to like take a step back and shift that to a different person. It's been difficult.
Yeah.
My
Getting there.
boyfriend's
Yeah.
been going to some of my doctor's appointments, and he has lots of questions
Yeah,
just because
good.
he's very curious, and
Yeah.
it's nice to have him there if my mom can't be there, or just because he's curious about learning and he wants to know more. He wants to know everything about it, which is very nice.
And I
in a
think that's
partner.
great. I think
Yeah.
it's fun when they want to be engaged like that, because it
Mhm.
really does help them to understand more about what's going on. It's not just you telling them what's going on. It's now there's a doctor who can
Mhm.
answer these questions and explain things. And yeah, absolutely. I think getting them involved at the point that you feel that it's worth having them there. You've
Mhm.
been together long enough, and it's a good time to do it. I absolutely agree. That's a
Yeah,
great
that's
way.
a really good way for someone to get more involved and learn about it. My dad, he never really went to my appointments because my mom was just all on top of that. But this past like year, he's been going to them more, and I
Yeah.
think that you could just tell he's learned a lot more. And like he was asking questions when I didn't know he was going to ask any questions, but he was asking them himself just out of curiosity and caring and wanting to know.
Awesome.
I think part of the parent relationship is also parents often push us to have a better understanding and better acceptance of what's going on with our own bodies. And Jillian, I'm going to pick on you for a minute here. I tell this story all the time, and you know that, and you're probably sick of me telling this story. But Jillian actually had an experience not long after she was diagnosed that her parents pushed her to get to
Oh,
know other
yeah.
people with MS. When you guys attended our family camp, you want to share a little bit about that?
When I first heard about it, I was just a little nervous. We're on our way to Minnesota, and
You weren't nervous, you were angry.
I wasn't angry. I was just like, so how much do we actually know about these people that we're going to meet in the middle of Minnesota? And they're like, well, I read it online. I was like, yeah, because nobody ever picks anybody up from online and kills them. So I was like, so what if we're just like going to meet murderers in Minnesota? And
I mean, really, it's an organization run by a sock monkey. Come on.
I was
Sounds
pretty
normal to me. I don't know.
I was like, this is a pretty good way to weed out the population, and you just lure some people there and just kill them. I was prepared.
Well, thankfully you came, and thankfully you're still alive.
Hmm.
We
What were your
do
thoughts?
have David raised his hand, and I know we're about to wrap up. So
Yeah.
do you guys mind if I just let him talk and ask his
Sure.
question really fast?
Sure.
Awesome. David, you are unmuted. If you want to go ahead and ask your question.
No, I accidentally raised my hand, but good
Okay,
conversation. Good conversation.
thank you. All right. Thank you so much.
No problem.
All right.
Well, I just
Um,
had one follow up for Jillian. You know, your parents pushed you to go to this camp, but how did you feel once you got there?
I think I cried a lot afterwards because it felt really good seeing that there's other people that know exactly what I'm feeling and are my same age. Because at first my mom was trying to get me to go to like an MS support group at the hospital for like 40 and 50-year-olds, and I was like, I really don't want to do that. So it really helped that we found this lovely group of axe murderers.
I'm glad that you found people to meet your expectations.
all
Awesome.
right.
Thank you guys so much. This has been such a fun conversation. It's so great to see how well you guys are doing and hearing about your relationships. So it's great catching up with you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. This was really fun.
Yes, thank you for having us.
Well, thank you. Before I give our little goodbye, I just personally want to say thank you. I learned so much from this conversation, and I do have some friends that have other chronic issues, so I'll definitely be sharing this advice. You guys are so great. And thank you for sharing your personal journeys. I know that might be intimidating on just not an axe murderer group, but just a webinar, but still, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank
Um,
you.
Thanks. That brings us to the end of our time. If you missed any part of this conference, it has been recorded and will be available through the MS Focus Facebook and YouTube channels. Please reply to your registration email for information on how to access these recordings or sign up for our newsletter to learn about upcoming events. Our next teleconference will be on May 9th, which is a Tuesday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern with Dr. Ben Thrower to discuss MS and the big picture. As we leave today's conference, a survey will appear on your screen. We ask you please to take a moment and give your feedback on this so your suggestions for future topics can be used to provide the best programs possible. Our sincere thanks to all our attendees for your participation, and especially to Emily and Andrea from Oscar the MS Monkey, to Shay and to Jillian. Thank you so much for your time, and this was a great conversation. Thank you guys.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank
Have
you.
a good evening.
You
Bye.
too.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.